Hello everyone, good morning and welcome to today's The Hindu News Analysis. Myself Nitin K. Biju, I'll be appearing for the civil service interview. In today's news analysis, we'll be discussing about 5 important news articles covered in the Hindu newspaper today. Now coming to the first page of the newspaper, the virus tally crosses the 50,000 mark and the number of deaths surges to 1,771. Indians returning on Navy ships may have to pay up. So, as we all know, the Operation Samudra Setu is going on with 4 ships going to countries like Maldives and UAE, and the ships will be returning with the stranded Indians there. But the issue is that, as with the flights, the people returning through the ships also may have to pay up for the return journey. Next article, top his commander killed in Kashmir police. So after the death of 5 soldiers of the Indian army, the army has done a counter operation where the top commander of Hizbul Mujahideen terrorist group was killed in Kashmir. Hacker sees security flaws in Arogya Setu. This is an article which is very important related to the privacy concerns related to the Arogya Setu app. So this we'll be discussing in more detail in the coming slides. Before moving to the articles, please go through the practice question once. Try to attempt the question by yourself. After discussing the relevant article, we'll come back to the question again. The question is about console bonds. Coming to the first article, a warlike state and a bond to the rescue. So as we all know, due to COVID-19 pandemic, the former finance ministers and the central bank governors, they have made a call for a larger stimulus to pull the economy back from the brink of the recession, right? So also the article is telling that we'll definitely need to go beyond the current revenue receipts to fund the complete stimulus. So the article is talking about the economic insufficiency of the country to fight the current pandemic and the need to find new instruments to fund the economic revival, right? So as we all know, in the budget, in the recent budget before the pandemic, has projected a deficit of around 7.96 lakh crore. So this is the fiscal deficit. I hope you know the concept of fiscal deficit. We'll be discussing it in the coming slide also. Also, then there were concerns around the balance sheet borrowings of around 1% of the GDP. The borrowings were supposed to be around 1% of the GDP, and there was a disinvestment target of 2.1 lakh crore. So, as we all know, what is a disinvestment target? It is the strategic sale of the shares of the PSUs, right? So, that is called disinvestment targets. So, in addition to the expenditure that was planned, the government has to spend anywhere between 5 lakh crore to 6 lakh crore as a stimulus package for economic revival. But the government has told that the government will not exceed the borrowing limit. So that is an issue. The government should actually spend much more than which it has actually spent to improve the economy of the country. Also, the Reserve Bank of India also has taken certain measures, such as the increase of 60% in the ways and means advances for the states. So, what is this ways and means advances? It is the credit given by the RBI to the states, right? So, it is the loan given by the RBI to the states. So, RBI has decided to increase the ways and means advances by around 60%. So, this ways and means advances it's a important prelims concept. Please go through it. We'll be discussing it in the coming slide. The government and the central bank need to understand that half measures will do more harm than good. It will only lull us into a false sense of security, much like the lockdown without adequate testing. So here the article is telling that half measures will not do. If you are trying to revive the economy, revive it in the complete manner possible. Do full efforts for it. So here he's also the article is also mentioning about one important method which has been used as early as the First World War. It is called the console bond. So what is this console bond? The console bonds, they were used by the British government in the First World War to improve the financing of the debt, improving the financing of the money, right? So the bonds which paid out an interest of 5%, they were issued in 1917 as the government sought to raise more money to finance the ongoing cost of the First World War. So what is this console bond? Console bond is a bond where the government will be issuing bonds and raising money from the public by paying an interest. But the major difference here, this is a very important point to be noted. The major difference is that it is a perpetual bond, that it doesn't have a fixed time. It doesn't have a fixed time within which the government will be people will be able to redeemable. The government can make it an indefinite bond, right? So that is why it is called a perpetual bond. That is the basics of console bond. We'll be discussing in the coming slides also. Anyway, so here the article is telling that instead of making donations to the PM Cares Fund, or that is the PM Prime Minister Citizen Assistance and Relief in Emergency Situations Fund, instead of making the donations there, the people can invest in the console fund, which will help the people invest more also, as well as the government will, the people will be getting the interest rate also, right? After all, most of the console bonds in the UK are owned by small investors, with 70% of them holding less than £1,000, right? So small investors can also invest in console bonds. So why is it a better option? So there is no denying the fact that the traditional option of monetizing the deficit by having the central bank buy government bonds is one worth pursuing. So what is this monetizing the deficit? It means that RBI printing money. RBI printing money to finance the deficit. So we all know what is the issue with RBI printing money. The inflation will increase in the economy, right? So that is the problem with monetization of deficit. And we all know that till 1997, India used to automatically monetize its deficit. That is, RBI used to print the money till 1997. So this facility was stopped only in 1997. Also, console bond is a compelling alternative because the real estate prices have fallen, and there are other there is no other good investment options other than gold. So this bond would be offering a dual benefit as a risk-free investment for the retail investors. Since the government is issuing the bond, it is risk free also the people will be getting back a interest rate also, right? So that is the dual benefit the article is talking about. When instrumented, it would be issued by the central government on a perpetual basis. This is a very important keyword here: perpetual basis, and with the right to call it back when it seems fit. So usually we know that there are the bonds are issued for like 10 years or 5 years like that, but this is a perpetual bond with the government having the right to call back when it seems fit. So that is what the article is talking about, the need of a console bond. So we'll discuss the prelims related facts here. Consoles is a name given to certain government debt issues in the form of perpetual bonds, redeemable at the option of the government. So we have already discussed it in detail. And coming to ways and means advances, it is a mechanism used by RBI under its credit policy to provide money to the states. So RBI to the states to help them tide over temporary mismatches in the cash flow. Presently, the RBI has increased the limit to 60%, right? Also, this ways and means advances, they are mentioned under the RBI Act under section 17 bracket 5. So also it is repayable within 3 months from the date of making that advance. That is, the state should repay the money back within 3 months. Also, what is fiscal deficit? The fiscal deficit is a shortfall in the government's income compared with its spending. That is the expenditure minus the revenue. The government that has a fiscal deficit is spending beyond its means. The fiscal deficit is calculated as a percentage of the GDP. So here you have to go through the recommendations of the encasing committee on the reform of the FRBM Act, resuming of the FRBM Act. So go through FRBM Act, what are its provisions and what are the recommendations governed by encasing committee. And as we have already discussed in the article, for this year, in this year budget, the fiscal deficit is projected to around 7.96 lakh crores, right? So coming back to the practice question, consider the following about console bonds. First statement: console bonds are perpetual bonds which can be redeemed at the option of the government. Second statement: it has never been used in the history of the world. Which of the above statements are correct? So the first, coming to the first statement, we all know that they are perpetual bonds and the government has the right to redeem it at any time they want, right? So first statement is correct. Coming to the second statement, it has never been used in the history of the world. So it is incorrect because in the previous article we have seen that the British government has used it during the First World War. Also, countries like US have also used in earlier uh, in the history. So the second option is wrong. So the correct statement is option A, one only. So option A, one only is the right answer. Coming to the editorial of the day, back home. As India brings back stranded expatriates, it must guard against a new wave of infection. So, as we all know, the first flight is supposed to land today evening, today night, right? So, bringing back Gulf returnees from countries like uh, UAE and Saudi back to Kerala, right? So that's what. So after nearly 2 months, stranded Indians across the world will begin their journey home this week as aircraft and naval ships is in a government coordinated plan are to bring back around 15,000 nationals from 13 countries in the first week. Okay, and this mission is called as the Vande Bharat mission. This is very important for prelims, not Vande Bharat mission. Along with this, please go through Operation Samudra Setu also. Samudra Setu is done by the Navy. It is the operation of the Navy to bring back people from Maldives and UAE, right, through ship. And the name of the ships can also be learned, like INS Jalashwa, etc. Right. So Vande Bharat mission is the mission of the External Affairs Ministry. This is very important, and they'll be bringing back the stranded Indians. They include business travelers, tourists, students, professionals, and laborers who have lost jobs due to economic impacts of the lockdown. Also, with the estimates of the application applicants ranging between 5 lakh to 10 lakh people, the embassies and missions will have their task cut out prioritizing the list of those who will return. So out of this 10 lakh people, we should prioritize whom we should be bringing back first. The people with health issues, the students who don't have hostel facilities there, the laborers who lost their job, and the people who are facing deportation. So these are the people whom we should bring back first, right? So prioritization should be happening. So as we have already talked, the people whose visas are expiring, who face deportation with family emergencies, medical issues, including pregnancy, and students who will have lost their accommodation, they will be allowed to return in the first phase. Also, the government has mandated an institutional quarantine for 14 days. All those returning will also have to bear the cost of the travel arrangements and the accommodation by themselves. So, despite this, the issue is that India's stringent lockdown and the government's decision not to allow its national to return for this much period of time has created issues. Has increased the efforts of the diplomats and the officials, and their efforts were made more difficult, right? Also, even in this period, 60,000 foreign nationals were flown out during this period. So, India didn't bring back their own citizens as of now, till now, right? So this has to be done in a fast manner as of now. It is necessary to consider putting in better systems so that it does not have to repeat the trauma of keeping Indian citizens stranded outside the country for extended periods away from their families. Also, it is necessary that the quarantine facilities are identified or makeshift centers built to deal with large number of people who may need it in return. In particular, the government needs to prepare for a possible second wave of a novel coronavirus as well as a rapid increase in Indian expatriates needing to return given the drop in oil prices in West Asia and the downturn in global economics. So, what the article is telling is there are many challenges which are coming ahead. There can be a second wave of COVID 19 in the country. Also, there can be more Indian expatriates coming back due to job losses. So all these are issues which are faced by the Indian government in the coming days. So there should be a better system for managing all this. The article is talking about that. Coming to the third article, blame game. The world needs more cooperation and less animosity in dealing with the pandemic. So, as we all know, President Donald Trump's recent attacks on China or the coronavirus outbreak risk further deterioration of the already strained ties between the two countries at a time when the global economy is in a precarious situation. So, when the global economy is in a very bad situation, China and US, the tensions are increasing between them. Also, Mr. Trump is under fire at home over his handling of the pandemic. Now, what he is doing, he seeks to hold China accountable for the infection spread. He has attempted to tie the origin of a virus, to the virology lab in Wuhan, the epicenter of the outbreak. endorsing an unproven theory, while his administration officials also accuse Beijing of withholding the information about the virus. Right. So these are the accusations which are happening. Also, in the past week, the president even said that they seek compensation and even threatened to impose more tariffs on China. So what is this is a U-turn as of now. Given his initial appreciation of Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping's handling of the crisis, initially the Trump has appreciated China's efforts in handling the virus, but later the U-turn has happened. Trump even called the virus as a Chinese virus, right? So stepping up the attacks on China, it might help Mr. Trump, whose approval rates are falling, to mobilize his base. So why to mobilize his base? For the coming election in November, right? So this is seen as a electoral rhetoric to improve the mobilize the basis, which is a traditional voter base of Donald Trump, right? So already his voter base, his support is less in the country due to his handling of the coronavirus. With 6 months left for the US presidential election, Mr. Trump and his party have effectively turned China into a campaign issue. Also, already there were the trade war between uh, China and the US, right? So the trade war between these two countries, it has already impacted the 4 decades long partnership. So there is this Huawei global bid to roll out 5G technology. So Huawei is a Chinese company, and US had created roadblocks for the company, citing privacy and security concerns, right? Please go through this Huawei issue. That might be important for the mains examinations. Also, after this issue, both sides had agreed for a initial trade agreement, but a final trade deal is yet to be reached. Also, China, which has brought the virus situation at home at under control, they have sent economic and medical assistance to the hardest hit countries, even to the US. The US is also importing PPEs, personal protective equipment supplies from China. Also, when Mr. Trump has halted funding to the World Health Organization last month, China stepped in with an additional $30 million grant for the agency, that is WHO. So these are part of China's coronavirus diplomacy, right? So Mr. Trump should look beyond his narrow blame game and see the larger picture. If the goals are to defeat the virus, save lives, and rebuild economies and societies, those can be achieved only through global cooperation, not through unsubstantiated accusations, conspiracy theories, and threats. So the need is for cooperation and collaboration, not blame game. That is what the article is talking about. Coming to an important news, hacker sees security flaws in Arogya Setu app. So the developers of the virus tracking the app says that no personal information is at risk, whereas the hacker says the opposite. So, ethical hacker Robert Baptist on Wednesday alleged that security flaws in the coronavirus tracking app Arogya Setu enabled him to see that 5 people at the Prime Minister's office and 2 at the army headquarters were unwell. So, this is a very important and very serious security breach, because a person from France, he was able to see that 5 people at the Prime Minister's office is not healthy as of now, right? So he also said that there is one infected person at the Indian Parliament and 3 at the Home Office. So these are serious concerns which the government should address. On Tuesday, he tweeted that there were security issues with the app, tagging the official account of the Arogya Setu. He said that the privacy of 90 million Indians is at stake. Right. Also, in response to the issues raised by Mr. Baptist, the team of Arogya Setu in a statement said no personal information of any user was proven to be at risk. But still, the government has to explain that why, how the hacker was able to say that say the health information related to people in the Prime Minister's office, Home Office, the Indian Parliament, and even the army headquarters, right? So Team Arogya Setu assures that that no data or security breach has been identified, but which is not as a credible response. So we should see in the coming days what will be happening, right? So coming to the main article, last article, resuscitating multilateralism with India's help. So here, the article is very important for international relations purpose. So here it talks about multilateralism at a time when the world is going towards unilateralism as well as narrow protectionist tendencies due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So here, and India's role is being discussed. So even as the coronavirus pandemic unleashes its devastation across the globe, the great and the good have been quick to remind us the value of multilateralism and the necessity to preserve it. So we need to preserve multilateralism. So cooperation among the nations will be necessary, but there is a problem. Multilateralism is at its weakest today. As we all know, the international borders have been closed, and all the nations have gone through a only a narrow nationwide perspectives to tackling the virus. There have been no international cooperation, and even the international cooperation is at its weakest. The multilateralism is also at its weakest now. Also, this article says that India may be uniquely positioned to help resuscitate multilateralism. Resuscitate means revive. So, why India is at a unique position to revive the multilateralism? One thing is the States they are facing multiple internal challenges, including the prospects of a deeply divisive presidential election in November. So, they have their own internal issue. They can't focus on the international affairs. Also, coming to China, China is facing a global crisis of credibility after this COVID-19 pandemic, right? So, these two issues creates a unique opportunity for India to improve its role in reviving multilateralism. So, the underpinning assumption of the post World War multilateral system, that is, after the World War, what happened? So, here the historical perspective is being discussed. After the Second World War, the world has understood that it is not through war but through peace that we can move forward, right? We can prosper. So, the multilateral system will help in preserving peace and prosperity, right? Also, some like-mindedness and a commonly held purpose were also assumed among members. For example, they believed that increasing economic integration and shared prosperity would help enhance these affinities and contribute to peace. So this seems to be a difficult paragraph. So but the crux is this: as we all know, for example, consider the example of UK and France. So we have known that they were fighting, right? They were enemies. They were very enemies. And even Germany, so France and Germany were big time enemies. UK and Germany were enemies, right? But despite and they fought the world wars also. But despite that, now the situation is very much peaceful in Europe. Why? Because after the war, they have decided to improve their economic cooperation and increasing economic integration. As we all know, there is a eurozone and there is a European Union which improved their economic and even the political integration. So when countries become interdependent on each other, then definitely the chances of tensions between them reduces. So that is what this paragraph is trying to say. Also, none of our multilateral institutions was built for a world where the ties of interdependence, which were supposed to enhance the well being of all, could themselves be weaponized for nationalistic gain. So, what is being talked here? So, as we all know, this interdependence was used by some countries to weaponize for nationalized gain. For example, consider the case of China. China is making other countries too much interdependent on itself due to its checkbook diplomacy, right? So this is called as weaponized interdependence. So what the article is telling, that China has resulted into a situation where weaponized interdependence has happened. For example, we know many countries are in a debt trap because of the BRI, Belt and Road project by China. So that is called this weaponized interdependence. Also, recognizing the shortages that countries were facing, mask, personal protective equipments, ventilators, and more to deal with COVID-19, China offered to sell these products to the countries in need. But this is called as China's coronavirus diplomacy, as we have already said. And other aspects of this is when India complained that the testing kits imported from China were faulty, China slammed that China slammed India for its irresponsible behavior. Also, when Australia indicated that it would conduct an independent investigation of China's early handling of this epidemic, China threatened it with economic consequences. So, added to this danger of using faulty equipments on critical patients, plus the risk that several actors, including EU and India, see of predatory takeovers of their companies by China. Recently, we have seen that India has regulated its FDI, foreign direct investment, to prevent Chinese companies from taking opportunistic takeovers of Indian companies, right? Due to the less prices of the shares due to COVID-19 crisis. So this is what is termed as China's coronavirus diplomacy. They are trying to utilize the coronavirus pandemic in favor of themselves. Even we might have heard about the issues in the South China Sea where they have renamed many islands into Chinese names, right? So we have already discussed about this weaponized interdependence. It is not just a theory but a practice that is rapidly evolving, especially by countries like China. So it is in this background that multilateralism becomes more important, right? So first, of course, is the need for reassurance and policies that reflect a renewed commitment to the multilateralism. Countries should say, first, uh, they should be able to have a renewed commitment to multilateralism. That is the first point which is required. Second, irrespective of the above, there is an urgent need for some strategic decoupling handled smartly in cooperation with other like-minded countries. So here we see another very important keyword related to international relations, that is strategic decoupling. Strategic decoupling means decoupling. What is the meaning of decoupling? It means ending or going away from, right? So decoupling in international relations means that so countries move away from countries, other countries which are creating issues for them. Uh, for example, consider the case of China and Pakistan. China and Pakistan, there Pakistan is very much interdependent on China, right? Also, Pakistan is said to fall into a debt trap due to China also. So, if Pakistan has to come out of this situation, they have to do a strategic decoupling with China. That is, they have to go away from China. In simple words, they have to go away from China, reduce the interdependence, right? So, that is the idea here. So, irrespective of this, there's an urgent need for some strategic decoupling for many countries. For example, Sri Lanka, even Maldives were also in a debt trap with China, right? So this strategic decoupling should happen, and it should be handled in cooperation with other like-minded countries, right? Also, third, flowing from the above, a multilateralism that recognizes the need for decoupling will necessitate closer cooperation with some and distancing from others. So this is also another aspect of strategic decoupling, that is closer cooperation with some countries. For example, similar countries, right? For example, yeah, Africa can have a closer cooperation with India because both of them are similarly situated, right? So that is also an example of strategic decoupling, right? Strategic decoupling is Africa moving away from China and coming closer to India. Also, one in the sense, the countries should limit deep integration to countries with one shares first order values like pluralism, democracy, liberalism, animal welfare, and more. That is, the countries with similar thinking should come together. That is the idea which is said here. And a role for India. The current crisis in multilateralism could be a remarkable opportunity for India, a country whose pluralism, democracy, and liberalism have often been underestimated by the West. As some constituencies in the West seek a gradual decoupling from China, so they would be served to look towards India. As China's credibility is reducing, so the Western countries can decouple from China and come towards India. Here, India could work closely with the Alliance for Multilateralism. This is an initiative launched by Germany and France, right? So while China may recover faster than most economically and its military might remain intact, its image as a reliable partner has suffered a huge dent due to its handling of the COVID-19 pandemic and other issues which such as the COVID-19 diplomacy. So neither aid diplomacy nor the unleashing of Chinese soft power can easily recover the trust deficit that exists today between China and much of the rest of the world. So while prudence demand gradual decoupling, so even the decoupling should be very gradual. It should not instantly stop. The country should not instantly stop all ties with China. It should not happen, but it should be gradual. It should be gradual, and it should not be seen as isolating China. So because it might create more tensions between the countries between and China, right? So the article is telling that India can play a major role in resuscitating multilateralism at this time when US is not able to do anything much here, and even China's credibility is under uh, at dent, right? So this is the article being discussed here. So here you can see main very important keywords. If you are able to use these keywords in your mains answer writing, or even when you are answering for your interviews, then it will be beneficial. It will be more specific compared to the other answers, right? So one is multilateralism, that is the cooperation between different countries towards a common goal. And second keyword we discuss is weaponized interdependence, that is the interdependence being used for the benefit of one country, for example like Chinese checkbook diplomacy. Next one is, another word is coronavirus diplomacy, that is the kind of diplomacy done by China. And the fourth keyword is strategic decoupling, that is moving away from countries and which are least favorable and moving towards country which have similar thinking, right? So these keywords can be, please take a note of these keywords. And the other articles in the newspaper which can be read, the first one is everyone wants a good stimulus, page 7. It is an article which is very critical about the stimulus which is asked in the economy, so you can have a good read of that. Second is European economy faces historic recession as expected, like page 14, you can just read that article also. So I hope you like the video. Please press the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share the video with your friends. Have a nice day. Thank you.